Welcome. It's another episode of Between Two Teachers. I'm Madeline Cronenberg.
And I'm Consuelo Lara.
And as always, we're coming to you from the very sacred land of the Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone people. And once again, we continue on. Here we are on Zoom because we are still in physical distancing. Schools are still closed. And I just want to give you some updates as to where we are right now nationally. Tomorrow, President Obama is going to give the national address to the class of 2020, which is a lovely thing because they're not going to get anything else as they normally expected it to be. There is an organization that's actually has put together a plan that school districts and school communities can use to create virtual graduations, which is, I've got a copy of it. It'll be linked. But one of the things that they're doing is saying to create a senior photo driveway. Right, where you have a picture of each of your seniors, and if you're going to be able to do some kind of pickup, even when they sort of did it here when they were picking up their gowns, but if you're going to have the gown, you really want to wear it somewhere. You know, anyway, they're saying to do that. They're encouraging families to decorate their doors, so the family of every senior would have their door decorated, and they can take their pictures next to that. Here in West Contra Costa, the Kennedy families have a website, and so there's a website for the seniors who are graduating from Kennedy, and the city of El Cerrito, much to their credit, and I think it's the credit of one young lady who's a graduate from El Cerrito High, put together something called, she calls it the Senior Spotlight, and it's on the El Cerrito City website. And she's got all of the seniors who've participated in a picture of their graduation picture, or the picture of the page that they have dedicated to them in their yearbook. And it's up there permanently, so it's celebrated by the city, because the city, there's such a lack of celebration. So I think that hopefully there'll be other ways that we can do it, and there will be some way that they're going to be able to be celebrated a little bit later. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the only education organization in the state that's decided what it's going to do is Cal State, and they're going to do online.
Yeah.
Right. Which means they're going to get very good at it. Right.
Yeah.
Which means that the one thing about that is that they're not even thinking about putting in all these other plans that everybody else has to think about. They're just saying, we're just going to be really good at doing it online, and we're going to do everything online.
Yep.
But not forever, but until January, I guess. That's the entire fall, which means that they're not going to have any of their sports. They're not going to open their campus.
Yeah, that's big.
UC has not decided, and they're up and down. And if you go to their website, you can see all sorts of things they're taking into consideration as to whether or not they really are going to do it, or if they're going to go half and half, right? But they don't know. The only thing they do know is they are not going to take the SAT or the ACT into consideration until 2024.
Ooh, well, that's good.
So for those of us who are trying to move people away from testing.
Yep, absolutely. There's no need for it. Yeah.
That is the one positive result of all of this, is that you would never have had that happen if it hadn't been for this. And that has happened. They've announced it. It's not like they're moving away from it till 2024. So that is a big deal. And the other thing that has come up just in terms of funding, the governor said yesterday how we are really depending on federal funding now coming in.
I know.
Because it's just a crisis. And you saw that the other night at your board meeting, right? It was all about money.
Yeah.
And how you're going to borrow money and how much money you're going to have to borrow.
Yeah.
The adult ed folks are really concerned because the last time throughout this state, there were many adult schools that closed. And there are many that are just run on a shoestring right now. And their money comes through the community college consortium. But if that gets cut, the community colleges aren't going to close. It's going to be the adult schools that close.
Yeah.
And they really do handle the most vulnerable students. Students who don't have jobs, right? If you're an undocumented adult, you're much more likely to go to the adult school than you are to, you're not going to go to UC or even the community college, because that's where you learn the skill sets that are going to support you.
Jeez. Yeah.
So they are really looking for support. So adult ed, once again, is in a crisis, as it has been so many times before.
Yeah.
And the other thing I just wanted to mention before you go into the future is the importance of our rethinking these co-locations. There was a meeting, a press conference, and there's a continual conversation around not having a moratorium, just like we have a moratorium on evictions from people who are in their homes, a moratorium on paying your mortgage, a moratorium to support everybody who's in trauma for all these families that have lost their jobs or have family members who are ill or who are scared. A moratorium on co-locations of charter schools, because really what you're doing there is evicting children and teachers from classrooms.
Exactly.
At a time when we have no idea how much we need those classrooms. Yeah. And so it makes total sense from every perspective, and this document that the experts put together proves it, to have a statewide moratorium on charter co-locations that come from Prop 39. We shouldn't have to do it.
Yep.
So there is a movement to do that, and hopefully we do it here in West Contra Costa, that we join it, or move forward, because we are also impacted. Not as much maybe as the folks that are about to close 24 schools, because this is in Oakland, they were closing their 24 schools. This is not the time to have that conversation.
Yeah. And, I add that the fact that it's very discriminatory. The fact that it affects mostly districts where there's more children of color.
Which is our whole charter school story, right? I mean, it all comes back.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, it's very discriminatory. And so, in my opinion, they should just make Prop 39 null and void at the state level, because in this emergency crisis pandemic situation, we need to get rid of it. We need the space. So,
because this is exactly it. Now we're talking about space, and now space has to do with health and safety. This whole story about we don't know how we're going to use the space, but we certainly shouldn't be handing it over. Right? We shouldn't just be closing schools for no reason when we're going to need all this extra space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
So, but now you're going to talk about the future.
Yeah, I was just thinking about post-COVID, education, and our emphasis really has to be on social emotional learning. And as we go through this collective trauma at all levels, we have to look at these things in the future. What are the possibilities? And a lot of this, we're not reinventing the wheel. These are good ideas we get from different places. Right. And the social distance teaching, we just talked about, we're going to need space. People are going to not be all crowded together. And what did you say?
Class size. This is a huge
the class size.
On class size, right?
Cafeterias you mentioned before. What may not have those at all at schools. And, one thing I think is important is, as we bring kids back, and possibly, you can't control. Can you imagine telling kindergartner, you got to do social distancing? That is, but I think what's going to be important is testing, the COVID testing, just to make sure, all of that. And so to me, health centers at our schools are going to be important. Nurses at our schools are going to be very important. So maintaining, supporting those full service community schools. And I really think the business industry needs to be the providers of that. of those things, you know, so they can fully fund that. We don't need philanthropy. That's all problem. But we are going to need that health aspect, you know, of schools. So that's what I was thinking about the physical plant. Then in the classroom, we had talked about teachers maybe knowing, you know, how to teach both distance learning and classroom teaching. But if we do team teaching, if two teachers, maybe one is skilled at the distance learning, because you're still going to have teachers that go,
Right.
"Ah,
And the way we've done team teaching before has been by subject expertise, right? So you had one teacher who did ELA and the other teacher who did math and science. That's been typically done before. So you can rethink that. I mean, honestly, I think in the world of looping, which is our,
Yeah,
we have to
was
talk
next.
about looping,
Yes.
right? Looping could mean, well, it means that you're going to stay with the teacher, but maybe you stay with her half time, and half time, so she becomes the teacher who you have your English teacher, your English language arts teacher, but for first grade, but she's still in kindergarten teaching English language arts there too. She could split that way, and then you could be with another teacher for the other subjects. Or it could be the way that it's done for distance learning, because the distance learning part, which may still continue, may be required for teachers who are over a certain age, who are looked at as vulnerable, or for, and also for families who have family members who are vulnerable, because that's what they're looking at. They don't want, so if you live with family members who are not well, you're not going to go live somewhere else. You're really in a vulnerable situation until this is resolved, and you probably would need to continue to get your education remotely. I mean, anyway, that is one of the things that they certainly are looking at. And when I looked at the federal and the state recommendations around education for the future, both of them said the one thing I really didn't want to see, but it's there, and it was to eliminate volunteers.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's
So,
good.
and so part of it is a lot of the volunteers are older,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But I think what you have to do is grow your remote volunteers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. That could,
right? I mean, because that's one thing that folks can learn to do, that are, you know, that people are starting to do now, and figure out how you can bring volunteers in. I mean, we can't eliminate volunteers, but you're going to have to figure out, you're going to have what you said, you're going to have daily testing. They're going to have testing everywhere. Just that's what they have now in China, where they have reopened. And that's what they're doing in Denmark. So, I mean, all these places that are the first models are using a lot of different kinds of at least daily temperature tests.
Temperature checks, yeah, for sure.
That's the thing that you can do.
When you talked about the university, not going to come until January, I was also thinking those are the universities that issue a lot of the credentials, teacher credential programs. So I'm thinking about that, because one thing I thought, they need to have a credential that's a distance learning emphasis.
Yes.
You know, to become a teacher, that you only want to do that, which was,
we're going to everybody's going to need to know how to do it. I think that's
but we do, yeah, we will need to know both for sure. And then the thing about looping, you said something about them coming back to the teacher that left them, and or no, that they had when they had to leave.
Right.
And how that would have, I think I saw that on the the Oakland Unified School District.
Yes, actually, Linda Darling Hammond, who is the,
yes,
right? She has a quote. I should read it. Let me see. It says, "We should start with the importance of relationships." And Linda Darling Hammond is the chair of the California State Board of Education, and a big leader in education. She's written many, many books, operated a big department at Stanford. And here's her quote. "We should start with the importance of relationships. Some experts have advised that students should return to the teachers that they had this past year. those who know them and their families, who understand their learning approaches and needs, and are best positioned to welcome them with understanding and compassion, to diagnose where they are in their lives and learning. There it is.
That's great. I mean, like I said, the social emotional aspect, we've got to be cognizant of that for sure.
So it should be upfront in the conversations. That's the thing. And this, of all the things that you can say we need to do, many of them require money. You're going to hire more nurses. Where are you going to get them? I'm going to move things around. You're going to change. All of these other things you're going to do are expensive. This you could do. We're saying it's the same teacher.
Yep.
But you have to get the teacher to agree to teach a different grade level.
Right. I was sharing that. I inadvertently didn't realize I did looping at Helms Middle School because I was teaching ELD 1s and 2s, 7th and 8th. And so I would have a bunch of kids 2 years in a row. I mean, you don't have to worry about trust building. The parent already knows you. I mean, you can just get right to work. Okay, you know what you do is there's a theory that in the beginning, when you move into third grade and you have the new third grade teacher, the third grade teacher has to work for the first 3 or 6 weeks on building that trust. Well, not if she was the second grade teacher. Nope. Yeah, you go right into it. Oh, you guys know how I am, and I know you.
Right. And you know each other, right? So the team is just brought back together.
That's perfect.
Right?
And
so it really has to be emphasized that we do that. It's just so that the issues become when you're leaving with the 8th grader who's going into 9th grade. That's
transition. Yeah,
right? That transition, that's the biggest transition of all. Or the 6th grader who's going to middle school. That's another transition.
Sure, absolutely. Right?
And we need to look at those and see what's, how to
pair them,
how to manage those. But
so next about the calendar, should we talk about ideas about the calendar? How about a 4-day week for teaching and then staggered days, because we see, okay, you may have bigger class size in terms of how many students are in your classroom, but you can't have them all at the same time. So you're going to have maybe kind of like kindergarten, the AM and the PM class, and a staggered day. So there's all kinds of looking at year-round, staggered cycles of year-round sessions. So the calendar is going to be definitely affected about how we're going to do this effectively. So, but I like the idea of a 4-day week. I think that.
Well, and we had talked about that before. I mean, there are a lot of ways, or maybe it is. I mean, there are districts that are talking about a flipped Friday. So everybody's home on Friday, right? Yeah. And it doesn't mean you're not at school, but that's the distance learning day. And there are lots of ways to do distance learning. So you could have your distance learning so that it really is all online, and as opposed to being interactive, it's videos. So people can look at it when they want to look at it, because the issue is going to be distance learning means that the students are still at home. Well, who's home with them, right? Or are they at home, or are they not at home and instead in childcare?
Yeah.
And if they're in childcare, what's that look like? Is that really a place where they go and they do remote learning?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the childcare is really an issue right now, especially for our essential workers, trying to get them childcare. I think we should have on-site childcare for our employees, really.
Yes.
So we need to accommodate that. That's another piece of social emotional help and learning. So let's see, what else have we got? So that's good. Those were good. I want to reiterate that we don't need testing, and how discriminatory it is, how it's used as a weapon, really. So when you hear people talking about metrics and data, no, that's just that's discriminate. As far as I'm concerned, it's racist, because who are they talking about? Children of color,
Right.
You label them, you stigmatize them, you say, oh, that's a failing teacher, that's a failing student, that's a failing school.
Right.
You know what? No, it's discrimination. So is No Child Left Behind. The Bushes brought that in. Common Core, Smarter Balance, which is the SBAC, right? I think so. smart
That's
about.
California's version. That's the
Yeah.
California model.
Yeah, we don't need any of that. We need
No,
real
and this is
quality
the perfect
teaching.
time. This is the
Yes.
perfect time. Just like Janet Napolitano saw it, did not begin this year thinking she was going to eliminate the SAT and the ACT. That was never on her list of things to do, but she just did it.
Yeah.
Because
And they
there
were-
are other extenuating circumstances. So those extenuating circumstances certainly line up to say we shouldn't be doing this kind of testing. And
Yeah.
teachers can do assessments. They do assessments on what they taught, but they don't have to teach to the assessment.
I know. There's
Right?
so many more authentic, really useful assessments. And it can be done.
Projects, all the project-based learning, right?
Oh.
Students put together an e-portfolio. And the interesting thing about all of that is that once they do that now, obviously business is online. They'll be able to have much more. We've talked about this in other venues, but for career technical, this is an opportunity to bring businesses into the classroom because the classroom is right here on a screen.
Yeah.
And that's where all business is now. That's where they are. So, so there are really major opportunities, positive opportunities that we can come out of this with. But in the meantime, we're going to have to go through, understand and have compassion for everybody who's struggling because there are many different levels of struggle here.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? That's the big thing. Somebody said we're all in the same, we're all in the storm, but we're in very different boats.
Ooh, that's powerful. That's right.
And that is right.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're all different kinds of boats here.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to really see this because it's not that we're going through it together, but we're having very different experiences.
Yeah, I know. That's true. Thank you for that. That's good.
All right.
Okay.
So now we're ready for our finale from Carlos.
Yes, Carlos. Here is our chuckle for the day.
Carlos, yes, our chuckle.
Carlos, this is it. So did you hear about the people that didn't want to be counted? Did you hear about that?
No.
Well, they just all lost their census.
A census joke.
A census joke.
Census joke. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, that's not it. I want to stop recording.